Okay, yeah, Psalm 35. Verse 18. I will give you thanks in the great assembly, and I will praise you among many people. That's not in context. When you read the context, it reminds me of me when I was trying to bargain with God. You read in context, David's being threatened, and he's being pursued by enemies. I think it's when Saul was trying to kill him. And he's asking God to save him from his troubles. And he's going through all this stuff. And he says, if you'll save me from this, then I'll praise you in the temple. I'll praise you before many people. I'll give your praises. I'll tell everybody how great you are, And I like that verse. I like it out of context better because it's the way I have felt about the Lord ever since I've been saved.
I'm a brother.
Okay, I'm Gary Allmon. I'm now a missionary, or retired missionary, just retired this year. Missions to Chiapas, Mexico for 17 years. And I didn't start out as a missionary. I'm from Cleveland, Tennessee, born and raised here. Had a rough start in life. Things have been really tough for me from the beginning. Was raised in a family of there were 6 of us kids, mother and father. They're decent people. They always were decent people. They're passed away now. And I'm not going to blame anything on them. I got off to a bad start in life from the beginning, fighting and acting crazy in school and very rebellious. Was sneaking and drinking. Well, I started smoking cigarettes when I was 10 years old, sneaking and smoking cigarettes. And then by the time I was 11, 12, I was sneaking and drinking. Was smoking pot at 13. By 15, I was into about, any kind of drug I could find, drinking drugs, acting crazy, stealing, getting into trouble, in every way I could think of. It's like I spent most of my time trying to think of things to do that would get me in trouble. Not intending to get in trouble, just things I thought would be cool to do. This would be so cool. And I had friends that followed me into my stupidity and got in trouble along with me. I got kicked out of the house at 16 because I was causing so much trouble for my dad. He said, look, you just need to go your own way. And I did. Didn't work out very well. I got in trouble within a few months and ended up with a choice of going to Bachman Home, which was a home for children, an orphanage at the time. But the director there, Art Flug, invited me to come and stay at Bachman Home. And he tried to encourage me to do things right. Became kind of a mentor. And he was a great guy, and Bachman Home was so much better than jail or prison, and I didn't mind being there. I had a lot of friends there, a lot of great people there. I was the only one at the time that was there because I got in trouble. Everybody else was there for other reasons. We were orphans who had been taken away from their parents. Almost everybody that I ever met there had been sexually and physically abused as kids and had all kinds of problems. I had a lot of mental problems, but didn't realize it at the time. I had so many things in my past, and I didn't realize it was because of these mental problems I was getting into all this trouble. At 17, I got in with the wrong crowd. People who were willing to go further and do worse than I was doing. and we ended up robbing a little beer joint. It was we'd been drinking for 3 days, and that was mainly because we didn't have the money for other drugs, and we had stolen the liquor from the house we'd broken into. And we were drinking and drinking and drinking. After 3 days drunk and drinking, they talked me into robbing this beer joint. And I was the one who went in and robbed the place. Ended up getting 15 years in prison for that. Got caught same day. We didn't get away. This was in South Carolina. I had gone to South Carolina to get away from the people and the drugs and the problems I was getting into here, and ran into people that were worse than the ones I ran from. And I went to prison at 17. I got 15 years for the armed robbery and the house we broke into, steal the liquor, got 15 years for that too. But they ran the sentences concurrent, so I had a 15-year sentence and had to do a minimum 5 years before I was eligible for parole. And I was in Columbia, South Carolina, in R&E Center, which was a reception and evaluation. All inmates go there before you go to your prisons, almost all. Frequent flyers usually just bypass that and just go straight to a penitentiary. But being my first time, and along with all the other guys who were relatively new to the system, you go to the R&E Reception Evaluation Center. It's supposed to be like a 1 week thing, but I ended up being there for 3 months. Everything was backlogged at the time, and it's like the prison movies you see, where it's really violent and all that. It was crazy. They had 5 tiers of cells, and I was on the top tier, 5th floor up, in this old building, and it was like old cell blocks, like you see in the movies, where you go down a corridor of bars and they have little cells on the side. And the one I was in had 6 cells in it, 6 2-man cells. They were built to hold 12 inmates per cell block, and they had 10 cell blocks, 2 on each floor. This was I went in October, and I was there through December, and then transferred for like a month to another facility, and got to penitentiary in January of 1975, just after I turned 18. I hit the penitentiary. I turned 18 at the R&E Center. I could talk a lot about that, but that's not what this is about. So, I spent 19 months behind the wall in medium security prison. Things were very difficult going in as a fresh fish, 18, young kid, first time in prison. I had to fight every day. I was attacked and blitz attacked by groups and gangs of several guys at a time, with and without weapons many times. And how I survived it, I don't know. I went in with the attitude that I was absolutely certain I was not going to survive this 5 years in prison. I was going to die. I was going to get killed at some point, probably early on. And I decided I was going to give it everything I had and fight as hard as I could. And when they killed me, I was going to try to take as many with me as I could, go down fighting. That's the only way I could see to do it. And figured, hey, if I'm going to die, I'm going to go down fighting. Now, I was not raised in a Christian home. My family wasn't Christian. They weren't. My dad didn't drink, didn't do drugs. Mom drank a little here and there, but tried to hide it. But my dad was a straight shooter, but he was a good guy. My mom was a good woman. but they weren't Christian. We didn't go to school. I didn't learn about the Lord. I heard, growing up in Cleveland, you can't help but hear about the gospel. You're going to see it. You're going to hear it. There's preachers everywhere, churches everywhere. And it's kind of buckle of a Bible belt. So you hear stuff. And of course, when I got to prison, I went to the church services because it was something to do. That it was fairly safe. You'd go in there. You didn't have to watch your back. Nobody was going to try to kill you in a church service. Because there was too many, they had outside people coming in. We had a chaplain that outside people from outside churches would come in too. And nothing would happen when the outside people were around, because if you started a ruckus when the outside people were around, they were going to charge you with riot and then give you 20, 30 years on your sentence, and you go in the hole for 6 months. And so everybody tried to calm it down in these situations. There are certain situations you mind your P's and Q's, or you end up never getting out. There were a lot of people who were never getting out anyway, because this was in a time, I remember, well, you won't remember, you're not that old, but historically, in 1973, the Supreme Court decided that the death penalty was cruel and inhuman punishment. And they set that aside, and everybody who was on death row got put out in general population. And everybody coming in, serial killers, mass murderers, they went in general population. There was no more death row. There was no more. And 73 and 74, the prisons was about, well, at least in South Carolina where I was, prison was about 25% people who would normally be on death row and be segregated. But they were just in general population, and the killing was just unbelievable. The guards called it the sausage grinder, because they brought in a busload of inmates. Like 40 inmates came in every business day, Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday they didn't have buses coming in. Monday through Friday, buses came in with 40 inmates a day. And there were only, on the average day, maybe 1 or 2 people got out, paroled, finished up, whatever, or transferred. Some days it'd be 5 or 6 leaving the same day. But with 40 people coming in every day, the population stayed pretty much the same. And the reason it did is because there were so many that went out at night with toe tags. People got killed, a lot of people every day. We averaged about 1 guard a month would get killed. And who knows how many inmates? It's hard to say. There was a lot. Just average day-to-day living, there's people getting killed every day. And when we'd have a riot, which wasn't that uncommon, it was usually almost always black on white, white on black. It would start with the gangs, and then everybody would join in. And 40, 50, 60 people get killed in 5 minutes, until the guards could get things under control. It was the kind of prison where the guards kept a perimeter. There weren't many guards on the inside because so many got killed. Most of them didn't want to come in, and they didn't have much of a presence of guards on the inside. And ones that did had no kind of weapons, They'd have pepper spray. That's about it, That's all they allowed to have, because they didn't want the inmates to take their weapons and have something to fight them with, So it was mainly containment, and so the inmates ran the place, and it was some really bad people there. I survived it. I met, got to know personally an awful lot of serial killers. Some of them are famous serial killers, some are not. People never heard of them. You live with people like that day in, day out, and you see the killing. it kind of changes a person, you know. It took me a long time when I got out. Some call it PTSD. I guess it's the same thing the soldiers get, but it's a weird thing. I was very different when I came out. I did not want to go back to prison, I can tell you that. Rehabilitation, I don't think it exists outside of Jesus. I think the only thing that rehabilitates a man truly is to come to the Lord. And I wasn't a Christian in prison. I didn't find the Lord in prison. I heard about him. I met some Christian people who were really Christian. I had some good role models mentors who tried to teach me things, but I didn't want any part of it, so I ignored it. I got out, and about a year after I got out, I got married. A little over a year. I got married to my wife. I'm still married to Pat. We've been married for 45 years. I tried to straighten up for her, and we had 2 kids in quick succession. We got 2 boys. Tried to straighten up for them and do right, and I worked hard. I'd stay out of trouble. But I play music, and I played guitar, and I tried to make money doing that in those days, and it ended up not being a good thing for me because the only place to play music around this area was bars, and so I'd end up playing at the bar, and I'd end up drinking up all the money I made, which wasn't a good idea, you know. So I ended up just going, playing, getting drunk, and going home without any money, so it didn't really help anything. It was really hard to get a job. I got out in 1979, August of 1979. I got paroled, only because I put in for out-of-state parole to come home to Tennessee. And when you put in for out-of-state parole, I didn't know it at the time. I wanted to come home, you know, I wanted to go back to Tennessee. And so I filed for out-of-state parole to go home to Tennessee. What they do is they just send your paperwork to the state you're trying to parole to and ask them, will they accept your supervision? Will they supervise your parole? And the parole board just sends it to the parole officers that'll be on your case. Ask them, you know, same thing. Are you willing to accept supervision of this guy? And if he says, yeah, he or she, if they say, yeah, we'll accept him, bang, you get parole. You don't even go in front of the parole board. If they're willing to say they'll accept you, you automatically get sent to South Carolina. Glad to get you out of their state. And part of the condition of parole is you can't come back. So, when I went up for parole, I was surprised. I didn't even go in front of the parole board. They called a bunch of names off. Following names, blah, 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 report to room so-and-so. Huh? And that scared me because I thought that was the people who was going to get automatically turned down. I was wrong. That's people who'd already been, the parole papers had already been filled out. Everybody called that room because all the people who had out-of-state parole had been accepted. We didn't go before any board. We just signed their papers and left. And I came home to Tennessee. But I found out there was a big recession going on, and you know it really hit hard. Everybody talks about 1980. It was already bad in 1979. It got worse in 1980 and 1981, and it just kept going. And jobs were near impossible to find, and if you did, it was a minimum wage job. And on parole, I had to keep a job, and so I did pretty much every kind of job you could name. And we got paid $3.35 an hour, which was the minimum wage at the time. That's the only thing anybody was paying. And so many businesses were shutting down, factories closing, businesses closing down. Jobs were really hard to come by, so I had to work like crazy. I had to work long hours, do hard back-breaking labor for very little money. You know, if you think about $3.35 an hour, you're barely making $25 a day. a day for an 8-hour day. If you work over, you might make $30 in a day. If you work, a 12, 14-hour day, you might make $30. And gas was cheaper, rent was cheaper and all that, but it still didn't pay the bills. So you had to have some kind of side hustle. You had to be doing something on the side, mowing people's grass or cutting trees or clearing brush or anything, whatever job there was, digging ditches, septic tanks and field lines. I learned how to do that and did that by hand and did a lot of them. We did all sorts of things. And Pat worked with me, worked alongside me because there's no way I could do it by myself and make the money. We tried working, and we both worked at one time, working 2 jobs, making $3.35 an hour. But when we did, she had to pay so much child support. It ended up costing us money for her to work. The child support cost more than she would bring home. So it's like, this is crazy. You stay home and keep the kids, it'll be cheaper on us. And we struggled. But I got into a lot of other, I was still smoking pot and doing drugs on the side. When we go to the bars, I was trying different things. I got into all sorts of drugs over the years. Not that I hadn't been doing them all along. There was a period when we first got married where I tried to stay away from drugs, but with things hard and having to work like that and going to the bars playing music, I got back into everything pretty quick. And when I started dealing drugs to make money to buy my drugs, which is the case of pretty much everybody who sells drugs, that's how everybody gets into it, I guess. And in 1992, we got married in 1980, so in 1992 we've been married 12 years. Well, we hadn't been married 12 years because this was in March. In March of 1992, we got raided by the cops, and I got busted with 2 pounds of marijuana that I was dealing. I'd been selling pot for a while, and I got into it slowly and grew, selling more and more and more. I had also done some other things, other types of drugs, a little here and there. Didn't want to get deep into too much of that. And there's a lot of things I can't really talk about on video because I could still be arrested for some of these things. But when I got arrested, it was a huge disappointment, like, oh no, I'm going to prison again, like, oh well. And this time it's going to be worse because I'm married. I got kids, Now I'm going to be separated. Wasn't so hard the first time being separated from family because I was already kind of estranged from my family anyway. I didn't really have no family. And this time it was a lot harder because having to leave the wife and kids. I had found the first true family with love for my wife and for my kids that I'd never known. And I never felt that in my life until with my own wife and kids. And now I'm going to be separated from them, and I don't know for how long. There's a lot of court stuff I won't go through. In and out of court, charges being dropped and then charges picked up again, and charges being changed and different things. But in June of 1993, we ended up in federal court. It turned into a federal case. They picked it up because they put a gun charge on us. Well, they arrested me and Pat both. They charged us both. Even though she didn't do any of this, she had nothing to do with it. She never smoked pot or drank or anything. She was, she went to church some. I didn't go to church with her. And she wasn't really a Christian. She was just going to church because that's what people did, you know. There came a point where I tried to talk to the district attorney at the courthouse one day during one of our things we had at the courthouse. And he wouldn't speak to me directly. He wasn't allowed to by law. He had to speak to me through my attorney. And my attorney was standing there. And I spoke to the district attorney, and I told him, look, man, you know she had nothing to do with this. But I'm willing to plead guilty to the drug charge, drop the charges on her. I'll plead guilty to the drug charge, but I'm not going to plead guilty to the gun charge. It's bogus, you know. And he told my lawyer, he said, tell your client that I'm not allowed to speak to him. He'll have to speak to you, and I'll only speak to you. And I spoke to this attorney again. I said, look, you know she's not guilty. You've done this pretrial investigation. You had the FBI run everything down. And I know they gave you in the report, she is known to not do drugs. She doesn't drink. She doesn't do drugs. She doesn't do any of this. You know she had nothing to do with any of this stuff. Just leave her out of it. You know, I don't remember exactly how I said it. So I'm like, you know the truth. You know, just leave her out of this. I'm the one who did this. Let's deal with me. And he spoke to my attorney again, told my attorney, he said, you tell your client that the United States Department of Justice wasn't designed to seek or prove truth. We're designed to get convictions. We have evidence enough to get a conviction. That's exactly what we're going to do. No deals will be made or even considered. And at that point I realized, man, they're just in this to sink me and her together, no matter what. And there's nothing I can do. And I kind of, my heart sunk. And I knew at that point things were not going well, and there was nothing I could do to save her. Nothing I could do to keep her from going to prison. The thought of both of us going to prison, not only am I going to lose my freedom, my wife's going to prison and lose her freedom. Now who's going to keep the kids? Either we have to find somebody, my parents or her parents, to keep the kids while we go to prison, or the state's going to take them, if we can stop the state from taking the kids and putting them in foster care. So we've got to act quickly to try to find somebody that will say we want the kids and get custody of the kids to keep the state from taking them. And now, if we go to prison, they don't house the men and women together. That means I'll go to prison in one state, she'll go to prison in some other state. I was realizing there's nothing I can offer God, because everything's His already. And I was trying to think, what have I got? What have I got? You know, I don't have anything. That's, you know, I mean, it's like, I can't even offer Him my soul. He created it. You know, it's His already, unless I'll give it to Satan, and I'm not doing that. So, and I'm still not absolutely certain He exists, but I mean, His existence is the only chance I got. If He exists, maybe He can help me. And so, as I'm pondering on this, going over this, just agonizing over all this, it hit me. I do have one thing to offer Him. Not in a bargain. I have one thing that is truly mine. I mean, everything else belongs to God. If He created it, it's His. He created me, I'm his. The earth is his. Everything in it's his. He created it. It's his creation. He made it. He created it. He owns it. But there is one thing he gave me and every one of us. It's ours. And that's our free will. And this began to dawn on me. And I'm sure God was revealing this to me, because I wasn't smart enough to figure it out on my own. It's just free will. My free will, my choices. The only thing I have to offer God is my will, and the only way to give it to him is to surrender. And as I realized this, I began to call out to him, not out loud, but I'm still trying to not wake Pat up, And I began to just inside in my soul cry out to God, Lord, I surrender. I give you everything. I have screwed up everything I ever tried to do in my life. Every plan was a bust. Everything I attempted failed. It's all been nothing. The only hope that I have is for you to take over and just run my life. And so I just give up. I surrender to you. I surrender everything. I'm yours. If you exist, Lord, please show me. Let me know that you exist. Let me know that there's a chance for me, that I'm not just talking to the air. And, at some point in this, in me crying out and surrendering to God, suddenly I felt his presence. And I can't describe it except for it was just the greatest feeling that I've ever had. It was greater than any drugs or any physical experience I've had in my life. Greater than anything that's ever happened. And it was almost like I was floating. Like I was just in ecstasy, just the most wonderful feeling that I could ever imagine. And I realized this is God's presence. I'm in the presence of God, and the feeling was like I could feel his presence in me and through me, more than I could ever explain in words. But God began to deal with me. At that point, God began to deal with me, and he began to show me in my mind the image of a man that I hated. The guy who snitched me out. The guy who got me busted. I hated that guy. Oh, he betrayed me. He was like my Judas. He betrayed me. He was a friend since we were little. He was kind of like kinfolks. I mean, we weren't blood kin, but his family was married into my family, and we had a lot of connections through school, through other friends and family. Grew up around this guy, and he was supposed to be one of my best friends. And he snitched me out to save his own hide. And I was so, I had, since a kid, I had this, you don't snitch, you don't snitch, you don't snitch, you don't tell. You take your lumps, you never snitch. And this guy to me was like the worst of the worst. He not only snitched, but he betrayed the trust and a good friend. And long story, but when the Lord showed me the vision, showed me his image in a vision, like in my mind, I just felt the hate well up. And when it did, poof, the presence of God was gone. Just like that. And like, whoa, no. And I began to argue and plead with the Lord, no, hey, wait, And I realized that it was that feeling in me of hate that pushed the presence of God away. No, Lord, I'm sorry. But the presence was gone. Well, the next day I told Pat, what had happened. I'd give my life to the Lord. And as it turned out, she had too. Same night, at the same time, I was on my side of the bed talking to the Lord. She was over her side of the bed talking to the Lord. We both had given our lives to the Lord the same night, surrendered to the Lord. And He was dealing with us both in different ways. So the struggle went on for 5 days. Every night, I would be praying and talking to the Lord and telling Him, look, I know You want me to forgive this guy, but it's so hard. Because every time I think of him, I have hate in my heart for this guy. Murderous rage. I want to kill him. And help me, Lord. But every night, the Lord would do the same thing. I would feel the presence again the next night. The second night, the presence of the Lord came on me again. And I'm basking in His presence when He shows me this image of this guy's face in my mind. And the feelings come up. And, oh, Lord, I'm trying. I can't do it. And the presence of the Lord goes away. On the 5th night, I said, Lord, please, please, please. I know what You're going to do. I know You're going to do this again. And I know I'm going to fail. And I'm trying. You know my heart, Lord. You know I'm trying, and I cannot do it. I can't. I'm trying, and I just can't. Help me, please. Help me. And instead of showing me this guy's image, the way he'd been doing, He did a little different. This time, He showed me, it was like watching a video. It was a video of Gary, of me, from childhood, from a little child, being mean, doing the nastiest, horriblest things you can think of. And I'm sure it was just a few seconds, but it felt like a really long video. And the more He showed me, the more I was just cringing, and I just wanted to crawl under a rock, man. As He was showing me, the true me, not the way I had chosen to see me as the victim, and even showed me times when, like, I beat up somebody who had done me wrong, and He showed me who had actually done me wrong, and I beat up the wrong person, and things like that, and I'm like, oh man, by the time this little video ended, I realized I am the vilest creature that's ever lived. And God, I'm so sorry. How can You even forgive me? How can You stand to be in my presence? How can You tolerate me? And then He showed me another little video. But this was a much shorter little video in my head, okay? It was a much shorter little video. But He showed me how He sees. He showed me this man that I had so much hate for, but through His eyes, the way He sees him, as a beloved son, as a child who, you and I both have children, you know how it is when your child misbehaves. Sometimes you have to correct them, but you still love them, and you want to do whatever you can to protect them, and you love them. And He showed me this man the way He saw him through His eyes as a beloved child who was mischievous and got in trouble. But as I was seeing this man through His eyes, I felt compassion for the man for the first time, And I was also still feeling the guilt and the shame of what a piece of crap I am. And then the Lord spoke to me. He said, what has this man done that's worse than what you've done? Nothing, Lord. Nothing. I mean, he had come near to being as lousy as I am. He said, you want me to forgive you, right? But you can't forgive him. And in that moment, I said, I forgive him, Lord. I forgive him. But I've seen him now as the Lord sees him. And I've seen me in the truth of our Lord sees my sin. I know he sees me as a beloved child too, but he showed me the worst. You know, what I was looking at in him is what he showed me. And what he saw in him is what he showed me too, with him. And when I saw the comparison, I realized, yeah, I have no right to judge nobody, man. I have no right to judge nobody. I have no right to be angry with this guy. And I forgave him. And the Lord worked with me. I still have to work on that at times. You know, I'll have ill feelings towards somebody. And the Lord kind of gets on my case, like, hey, are you forgetting? Yeah, sometimes I kind of do. So, sometimes I kind of do forget, and I kind of do have these ill feelings towards people. But you know, the Lord changed me so much that after that night, I just had a love for people that I never had before. Be honest with you, before that night, I hated people. I mean, there's very few people. I didn't like people. I didn't want to be around people. I hated crowds. I didn't like going to stores where there's a lot of people. I didn't like being in crowded places. I'm sure a lot of that came from being in prison, in a crowded prison with the danger and everything. But a lot of it was just my personality. I just didn't like being around people. One thing I hated about prison was all these stinking people. There's people everywhere.